Well, here we are. It is Saturday, October 1st, 2022, and in this video we're going to talk a bit about the auction results from Asia Week in New York that took place just a week and a half ago. It finished up. The last of the sales, actually the online sales, just resolved themselves yesterday. So I thought we'd get this done. Because there's a bunch of videos we have to get out. There's upcoming sales in Hong Kong, which look unbelievably good. There's smaller sales, many of them, but there's some really choice objects in there. And we're going to do the Christie sale, and then we're going to get into the Rockefeller auctions, which are coming up, which have a lot of great Chinese art in them, as well as Western art and all kinds of things. They're spreading the sales out over a series, I think, of 10 auctions or 12 auctions at Christie's. It's going to be quite something. All right, so let's get started on this one. First thing I wanted to talk about was the Korean auction that took place. Sublime Beauty Korean ceramics from a private collection. It grossed $1.2 million. It was a small sale consisting of, I think it was 24 lots. Okay, and this was a curious sale. And I had mentioned in the video previews on Korean art recently that sometimes the estimates are a bit too steep. And the reason is that these are older collections, and the owners, I suspect, I don't know this to be absolutely the case, but having dealt with consigners and auctions for years, they get a number in their head, what they think something is worth, and they stick to it, and the auction house tries to accommodate them, and if the auction house gives in to the demands of the consigner, sometimes the result they got is what they got the other day at this auction. It had 24 lots and only 7 of them sold. It grossed $1.2 million, which is not an insignificant sum, but I think that the auctioneer in this case let the tail wag the dog, so to speak, because I think the estimates, as I mentioned when I was doing the preview on this, seemed a bit high. For example, this very rare and very unusual Joseon period teapot, I thought was a bit steeply estimated, and it was, and it didn't sell. And there were a number of lots in here that were really great, but just didn't have enough interest to get anywhere. The ones that did sell, though, did well. These are all good items. There's nothing wrong with the objects, but I think the estimates were based on pricing and so forth, going back to maybe 15 to 20 years ago, when the Korean market was a lot stronger than it is now. The Korean art collectors are like the Japanese, sort of left the market. And when that happens, when the country of origin for art is no longer buying that art, especially if it's Asian art, you have a problem. And Sotheby's had a problem with this. That's all. The sale was good things, but it was more or less a flop. All right. When you have a 70% buy-in rate, it's not good. Just say the least. At any rate, but the things that did sell were wonderful. I'm not knocking the pieces at all. The pieces were all great. The prices were too high, and the reserves were too high. This one, the crane and tortoise jar, it's a well-known type. They were made during the 18th and the early 19th century. It was a good one. It was estimated at $200,000 to $300,000, and it ended up selling for $252,000. Pretty good result. It was a very attractive example. Had that nice bluish tinge to the white glaze. The drawing was pretty spirited, nicely done. I like the way the crane was done. They got the roux heads around the top of the pot and so forth, and it was a nice looking jar, and it was good size. It was a foot tall, 12 inches tall, very presentable, and there it goes. All right, so it wasn't all bad, but it wasn't all good either. So, and then there was the moon jar. These are always in favor. There are apparently still collectors very interested in these. These jars are iconic. They symbolize the moon, as the name implies. This one was made during either the late 17th or the early 18th century. Was estimated at $180,000 to $250,000, and it did very well. It sold for $403,200, which is quite good. This was a nice example, though. This was a really nice example. It had this very good. There's that bluish tinge to the glaze. The surface was nice. It had those little black speckles that you want to see, and then this nicely executed base overall, very, very presentable. And these are also a good size. This was 14 inches tall. And they have quite a presence, and there's just an absolute love of these things. As I mentioned before, there's one in particular, a Korean potter rather, who's still making this. And his pieces, the modern ones, the contemporary ones, can sell for well into six figures. So the interest of this particular form seems to be never ending. And then there was the iron brown painted jar with this very folky dragon on it. I like this. I mentioned a few weeks ago how much I like this. I like the drawing of it. It's very free. It's very folky. It's almost cartoonish looking in a way, but nicely potted on a sort of a pseudo moon jar shape. With this nicely finished up rim. It tips a little bit to one side, which is pretty typical for these pieces. It was estimated at $15,000 to $20,000, and it brought $18,900. So in that case, they were right on it. All right, and the rest of the sale didn't sell. Basically, there were a few other lots that were in there that did sell, but more or less, it seems like some of the iconic things that everybody's familiar with in Korean porcelain and pottery examples did okay, and other pieces were sort of on their own, so to speak. There was also one of the classic 19th century dragon jars that brought around $30,000. $31,000, I think, was the final price on it. But other than that, I think it didn't go all that well. And hopefully next time around, and I'm sure Sotheby's will remind their next consignor of Korean objects to throw away the price book from 20 years ago and deal with sort of the newer reality of where the market is. Antiques do not always go up in value. It's a bit of a myth. Overall, they tend to, but if there are shifts in specialties and changes of interest, they can go down in value, as we've seen with export wares, for example. Export porcelains are a much better deal now than they were 20 or 30 years ago, because the interests have shifted to Chinese mainland, domestic wares made for that market more than for the export market. All right, so it's the focus has changed, and that can have a big impact on what values are. And then there was the bronze sale. This did great. This sale did fabulously well. It was a 30-lot sale, and all but 2 lots sold. It was 95% sold, and the sale ended up grossing a little over $7 million. I think it was $7,100,000 and change. Did very, very well. But these were prime examples. Beautiful condition, beautiful quality, bought from good sources and bought some time ago. These are not objects that have been on the market, 3 times since the year 2000. There are objects like that. Everybody's familiar with them. They get sold and they come back after a couple of years. And those are most often bought by people speculating, not really collectors. They sort of jump into the market and jump out of the market and try to make a buck on things, and often it backfires. But this was a good collection, and we're going to go through some of the prices here to see how good it was. There was this Zun vase, Western Zhao from the Kung Mu period. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. Very lovely example, great old, very rustic surface on it, very, very well patinated, a nice form. And these are not terribly big bronzes. These aren't huge 20-inch bronzes or something like that. This one I think is around 10 inches tall or something. 8.5 inches tall, pretty small, but an elegant example, good condition, nice provenance, and ended up selling for $756,000 against an $800,000 to $1.2 million estimate. So it barely got by. I suspect whoever bid on it was right on the reserve, and they got it. But that's fine. $750,000 is a perfectly good result. So bravo, they let it go. And then there was this Western Zhao Gu form bronze, ritual bronze with a food bronze with a cover on it. Nice example. Beautiful masks on the end. The patina was interesting on it. There appeared to be sand or something in the bronze, but nice surface, nice patina, undisturbed, which is also terribly important with these things. And had these wonderful masks on the end. very animated looking, and they had their rings weren't bent. Everything was in good shape. And it was estimated at, let's see, what was the estimate? 400,000 to 600,000. Sold for almost $910,000, $907,200. So it went well over the estimate, and it did just great. And the history of it was quite good. The last time it had been at an auction was in June of 1982. So basically 40 years ago, a little over 40 years ago, was the last time this thing came on the market. And it had, if you read through this, it had an extensive ownership provenance going right behind it. Let's see, all the way up to the to the Guangzhou period, when it was first bought out of China. All right, so it's a good example. And then there was this Muli Eastern Zhao early spring or spring and autumn period vessel. Nice surface on it. Very, very good looking feet. I love the feet on this thing. Very strong, almost like elephant legs coming down, and beautifully, beautifully done masks all the way around it. Again, undisturbed surface, in good condition, and was estimated at $150,000 to $250,000, sold for $378,000, which again is a great result. And the last thing this was sold was again Sotheby's in 1984. And I noticed that the 1984, 5, 6 in that area seemed to be when this collector did most of his buying. So he bought it back long before the prices really rose a lot, and built his collection that way. And he got rewarded for it now. I don't think he was buying it to make money. This is when you hang onto a collection for 40 or 50 years, you're a collector. You're really interested in the product, in the material, the history of the material, and that's the way to do it always. Okay. And then there was this Western Zhao Gui, another one, incense burner, two-handle incense burner. This was pretty striking. The green on the patina on this, and the shape of the mask, the shape of the handles, the mythical creature handles on the ends of this were really attractive. Beautiful casting, crisp, detailed. The rebuses going around it all look, punctuated. The center of the vase of the pot rather draws your eye to it, and then you have these geometric patterns and so forth running all around the thing. Absolutely beautiful looking bronze, and from a nice early period. Estimated at $600,000 to $800,000. It went for $1,083,000. All right, so bravo on that. That was a good one. And then there was this Fang Ding, late Shang Dynasty, fairly well-known type, but it had an awfully nice surface on it. And it was only estimated, only $300,000 to $500,000. It sold for almost double its high estimate. It sold for $907,000. But very desirable form and a very good example of it. It was interesting though, because it did have some blemishes here in the patina here and on the sides. It looked like somebody maybe scraped it at one point or did something to it, maybe to simply get the patina off, which was known to have been done. I saw some very early bronzes, some Shang bronzes in a collection here in the Boston area a number of years ago. And they had two that were nearly identical, a couple of Fandings, and one of them somebody had completely removed the patina off of it. It looked almost new. And it wasn't new. It was an old one. They had bought it from a prominent London dealer back in the 1930s, and one of them had been completely scraped clean, and it was something that was done to them for some mysterious reason. At any rate, this was estimated at $300,000 to $500,000, and it went for $907,200. Not bad. And that was sort of how that bronze sale went. The sale overall did great. If you want to go through it down the road, you want to see the catalog later, it's of course over on our website. It'll be there forever. Because we have a copy of it. We convert, as you all know, we convert these things into PDF files and get them converted into catalogs so they can remain there for reference down the road. But go over there and go through it, because this is a catalog worth looking at. There's some nice examples, and you want to save images always try to save images from these auctions because they're invaluable reference tools down the road. Keep them in a folder on your desktop by category, organize them, and they're very handy to have. All right. And now over to the important Chinese works of art sale here. This was a good sale overall. I think it did fine. It also grossed just a little over $7 million. There were a number of items that didn't sell. I'm gonna guess the buy-in rate was around maybe 30 or 35%, something like that. I think they had some a little overly aggressive estimated things, and then there were some things that were well under the estimates were very, very reasonable, as you always have. All right, there was the Clair de Lune rib jar, Kangxi period, well-known type. We've seen these before. This one had good color. It was, I think it was owned by by Wiesbrod, I think was the dealer that owned it. It was sold at auction. It's 10 inches tall. Michael Wiesbrod, yeah. It was sold at Sotheby's in 1989. He had it, the last dealer to have it was in 1990. Here's a picture of the bottom of it, which is very nice. As I always say, it's so great that they're starting to include what the foot rims of these things look like, because how the foot rims appeal is a crucial aspect of dating these porcelains, especially porcelain. And you can see here that the vase, the bottom of this jar is obviously a bit concave. And so you have the outer edge here, the foot rim. You can see where it's been in contact with tabletops and stands over the years. That polished point, that's the part that sticks out the most. The rest of it just sort of in the air all the time, but it rests on that outer foot, the outer edge of that foot rim. And you can see how it became polished over time just from standing on it. So it's a good way to learn about them. The interior, of course, is fully glazed, nice even blue glaze. Overall, it was a very, very good pot, and it brought $126,000 against $150,000 to $250,000 estimate. Why there wasn't more interest in it, I don't know. It may be the economy, may be any number of things. It may be the piece had been on the market and had been flogged around a little bit, and if you own art and you're thinking of selling it, there's a natural tendency among some people that don't really understand the market to maybe go to a bunch of dealers and see if they can sell it. The problem with that strategy down the road is if you go to sell it later in an auction, everybody's going to say, oh, that jar that guy had, yeah, my customers didn't want it, and they feel it's been overexposed, and maybe a lot of people passed on it, and that causes bitter hesitancy on behalf of collectors and dealers sometimes. So you want to be careful about people talk about overexposing pieces. That's what happens. You kill your own piece by flogging it around and trying to play amateur. If you're not a dealer, go to a dealer, ask them to represent you until the transaction's done, or go to a good auction house like Sotheby's or Christie's, or Doyle's or Freeman's or something, and ask for them to get the job done for you. But be very careful about beating it around in the bushes trying to find a buyer, because you will shoot yourself in the foot 9 times out of 10. Fresh stuff is what people want. All right, and then over to that's interesting bronze. I brought this up in the last video we did the preview because I liked it so much. I thought it was just a really terrific object, and it was good size. It was 40 inches tall, and it was from the collection of Edward Chow, and had been descended within the family. It was estimated, I thought, very, very reasonably, $8,000 to $12,000, and apparently the bidders thought it was very reasonable too, because it ended up selling for $44,000. But this is a wonderful bronze, very nice detail. Here's the dragon, here's the flaming pearl with a little divided up like a yang and yin, and but just wonderful quality, wonderful surface all the way down. It was one of my favorite things. It wasn't the most expensive. It's what I like. It's the kind of thing I like. They called it a wall fountain. They did the same form in porcelain sometimes. And then over to the Peking glass market. This was a really good one. This was an overlay, they call it snowflake, or they called it a snowstorm, glass bottle vase. It was around, 12 inches tall, 11 1/4 inches tall, with a chin lung mark. Here's the bottom of it. And it's got a couple of really nice old sticker you don't see very often, Louis Joseph. And the Louis Joseph was a longtime presence in the art world back in the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. He was a collector. He was a dealer. He had a presence in Boston. I knew some of his relatives who were also dealers. He handled great things. He had an auction. He did auctions, and he handled this at one point. Not surprisingly, he was also in London. Not surprising at all. It was estimated at 50 to 70,000. Ended up selling for 63,000. But I'm glad to see it. Peking glass seems to me to be one of these overlooked, underappreciated markets. There was a time when Peking glass was very popular, and then it sort of went out of fashion. Now it's coming back into fashion, maybe. I hope. I don't know why it's not more appreciated, though, among collectors. It just doesn't seem to be. And this thing is every bit as beautiful as any piece of porcelain. Absolutely beautiful piece of glass. Technically, very hard to make. These are, much harder to make than porcelain. And this is carved glass. And beautifully carved, beautifully polished, all the way down. Nice color. And these are heavy. I like them because you pick one of these up, they have a lot of heft to them. And I went for $63,000. And then there was the turquoise ground vase. This is the porcelain that emulates cloisonné. There's no wires in this. Is all the outlining that look like wires are actually just gold paint, but beautifully done. Qianlong Marken period, and in this particular example, these turquoise pieces, and there were others too, but these turquoise vases often have the rain mark done in gold on the bottom. Something that they did. The foot rimmed on it looked absolutely fine, nice, round, nicely trimmed, nicely polished. A little bit dirty from being, resting on stands and things, but very, very nice. There's the mark. Beautiful blue. This blue enameled interior that was so popular in the late 19th century. And here's a side shot of it. Just a great example. It went for just about the high estimate, 340,000. The upper estimate was 350. So they nailed it on this one. And the last time it sold, again, Christie's 1988. That was the last time this thing was on the market publicly. All right, and then over here to this Hu form vase from the Daguan period. It was Marken period. Classic form. You've seen these before. This was a very nice example, though. Blue and white continues to be popular. I was looking over the wholesale. There was a fair bit of blue and white in the sale from moderately priced things, $5,000 or $10,000, all the way up. And there still seems to be good interest in blue and white. It's amazing. Other things wobble around and change, but right now, blue and white and monochromes seem to have still a very active collector body behind them. But this one was nice. I love the way the wave border was done on the bottom of this, sort of swirling in different directions and so forth. And these bands of scrolling vines and flowers, and then the lappets around the neck, and then the wave border repeating at the top. Very nice. $113,400. It went well over the high estimate of 80,000. Went 50%, almost 50% over the high estimate. But a good example. And the last time this was on the market was at Sotheby's over 20 years ago, 1997. All right, and then the Celadon thing. I happen to like this a lot because I like the form. I thought the shape was interesting, had a real presence to it. I like the characters in it, the carving of it. It's late Ming, or mid-Ming rather, and Long Quan kiln example. Museum of Modern Art, New York. The provenance is very good. The collection of Nelson Rockefeller, Ralph Chait Gallery, and Milton Bates, who died in 2006. Estimated at moderately at 10 to 15,000, did much better, doubled the high estimate, went for $32,700. All right, and the size of this, what was it? It was 11 inches tall. There you go. But very handsome, a striking piece, nice shape. I like this sort of beaded detail, the ribbing down the sides, and I like the way it was, the incise carving. And again, they provided a terrific image of the foot rim. There's the Chait Gallery label on it, and there's that nice worn patch on the foot white area, where it's been resting on stands for the last 500 years. Just a terrific example, in that typical iron oxide bloom that you get on the inside and the outside of the foot with these Mingwares. There is a separation in the bottom from the firing, which is pretty typical. The bottoms of Longquan celadons often had problems around the foot and around the inside from shrinkage. Maybe the clay was a little bit too wet when they went to fire it, and it shrank much more than usual in the heat. So there you have it. All right, and then the Wanli Marken period inkstone with the dragons on it. I like this a lot. I went on a bit about this a couple of weeks ago just because I thought the condition was so good, had minor bits of wear. And this red is really susceptible to wear. And this one, it didn't seem to have suffered too much. And I love that yellow, the yellow well with the ink pools down in there. That's just a beautiful color. All the colors on this were nice, as a matter of fact. Very nice example. And the body, of course, is fully reticulated. And it was estimated at $80,000 to $120,000. Went for $100,800, right smack in the center of the estimate. They nailed it. And the Sung Cup. I was very pleased to see this got some attention. I thought this was wonderful. I actually went off on it a bit because I thought the estimate seemed awfully reasonable, and I thought maybe it was a chance for someone that not everybody can spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 at auctions. It's expensive if you got a family and kids. You could cause some arguments at home. And here you have this wonderful cup with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate with a dragon molded onto the body. I thought it was terrific. And I thought, gee, if you could buy it for that estimate, what a great thing. And there's the bottom of it, just the way it should look. And Sung Dynasty, Southern Sung. It did great. It brought $11,340, so it went over for almost 4 times its high estimate. But it was a great little cup. God, that was a good cup. I like that. Unusual too. That was the part of it. Sometimes unusual things can go for under the money because the bidders don't know if there's what to compare it to get a sense of value. And apparently it didn't seem to be much of an issue. And then we had the unsigned but Qianlong period vase, jade vase with a giant dragon in the middle. The carving of this was just terrific. And I was wondering how it would do without a mark, because sometimes jades that are obviously 18th century or of a particular period, if they don't have a mark on them, they tend maybe sometimes to fall through the cracks. This one didn't fall through the cracks. It got a lot of attention, and had a beautifully, beautifully, beautifully carved surface. Absolutely, look at the little tiny details here with the pearl and all that relief work. Perfectly done. No damage, not broken, not snapped off. You could snap those little edges off with a blink. And it survived all these years. There it goes. It was estimated at $800,000 to $1.2 million. I sort of thought maybe a little high. And I think we were thinking when we looked at this, we thought maybe it should have been estimated at $600,000 to $800,000, something like that. It ended up selling for $756,000, including the premium. So I'm going to bet it sold it just at the reserve. It made it just to the reserve, which I think is reasonable. I think the estimate was a bit too high, but you got to deal with consigners, and consigners can be awfully difficult. And then the last one is this Daoguan Marken period red puce enameled Huform vase, very well-known shape, very, very, very well-known shaped vase, often done in tea dust glaze or done in other monochromes, reds and so forth. Very popular during the Daoguan period, very popular during the Guangxu period. They're terrific. I've owned a few of these over the years. I've never owned a puce enameled one, but I've had others, monochromes and so forth, in white, in green, that kind of thing, red, flambe glaze. But this was really wonderful. Beautifully, the enamel decoration on this was just superb. Just absolutely superb all the way down. And let's see here. Let's see what the base of this thing looked like. There you go. There it is. Now, I had mentioned before, they said this is Marken period. I couldn't see the mark. I think that's it right there, that little faint square right there. I think that's the Daoguan mark, but boy, it's hard to see. They say it's Marken period, so it's under there. just fairly faint. The glaze might have been too thick too. That's also possible. It was estimated at 30 to 50,000, and it went for $113,400, which is a very strong price, but a beautiful, beautiful example, and lovely color. And it's one of those memorable pieces. When it comes back up in 10 years or 20 years, if I'm still around, we'll maybe play this video back and see, and then compare it and see how it did the next time. That's always fun to do. It's always fun to go back and look at things that have been through the mill before, or through collections, and then how they do the second time around. But this had a good, strong following. Obviously, it jumped. So that was it. That's sort of a quick look at how the sales went. I think overall they were very good. Given the conditions of the world right now, you have to always take the market and the economy into account. How much money do people really have left over to spend on art when you have a global economy that's in a recession, more or less? I don't care where you are. Everybody's impacted by what's going on in the world. The U.S. economy, where the stock market's off by 20% or so for the year. So maybe people are being a little bit more careful, but we'll all get through it. These downturns in economies are cyclical. They come along every 8 to 12 years, and then it's over. So fear not. I know a lot of people out there are worried, but don't. All economies are cyclical. All right, now thanks for watching. We'll be back with some other videos the next few days. We're going to work on some others. And if you haven't subscribed to us yet here on YouTube, please do. We like to see new subscribers. And come over to bitamount.com, sign up for the weekly newsletter so you get notified when we update the newsletter page for the eBay items that we find every week. And join the forum. We have a forum. And nice guys over there, and they can help you with things. And you can share information, share pictures. If you like to show off your collection, go ahead. Have some fun. All righty, it's what it's about. All right, have a great rest of your weekend, and thanks for watching. And we'll get the other videos as soon as I can get to them. We'll get the other ones. All right, bye-bye.